Hello and welcome back to Plat Chat Valorant. This might be one of my favorite First Strike previews that we're doing, because I just love talking about Immortals, Jonathan. They are an organization that is unique within the scene in terms of their ability to pick up talent, and they've done it again and again and again. And it's just like everything you could possibly want from an org, they do. They pick up unknowns, they go deep in tournaments, they sell the players, make all their fans mauled, and then they find new talent. They're some of the biggest brains in the scene. They go deep in tournaments, they're flashy players, we're all living in Packington and Gumba's simulation right now. It's absurd.
Yeah. No, yeah, that is absolutely spot on, okay? So what you need to understand, if you don't know anything about Immortals in Valorant so far, is that typically when you follow an esports, like everyone's playing, CSGO or Overwatch or Valorant or whatever it is, we're like competing on the same level. Immortals, they have like a top-down view of the entire scene and everything that's going on, all the matches. Like they're playing Football Manager, but Valorant. So like Valorant Manager on like easy difficulty. And they're just like, we're just going to make absurd trades and like all of that and like work things out. Like things that would never happen in real life, because if you're like, in Chelsea or Manchester United or whatever, like trading a big time player, that's quite difficult. They got a big contract and, you don't want to ruin the fan base and all of that. So it's quite complicated to execute. Immortals, they're just like, every month, it's like you get a newsletter and it's just like, okay, who's moving where, what player are we picking up next, etc. So like, this is a team that is shuffling around their roster quite a bit, and they're able to find these like uniquely talented individuals in the tier 2 scene, but still have incredible results. So this is not even a video solely about the players of the Immortals. This should be a video about the organization Immortals. Yeah. You have Packington and Gunba, the staff of this team, really a big part of this team. Unlike many other teams in the scene, Packington and Gunba are like integral to the organization Immortals, and so important when it comes to the results in the tournament of this year.
I feel like I and the rest of Plat Chat Valorant might be a little biased towards the Immortals staff because we come from the Overwatch League, and so do they. Packington and Gunba are Overwatch League coaches. But at the same time, they've done stuff in the scene that no other coaching staff has. You could look at Andbox, for example, who are a breakout team that have found new talent, and they've done what Immortals have done. But Immortals have done it twice already, and the Valorant scene is so young. It is ridiculous. So I think that is a good place to start with the coaching staff, like you said.
Yeah.
And can you... Oh, go on.
So I just wanted to say as well, for, 2 times in Valorant, but Immortals, Los Angeles Valiant in the Overwatch League, they have the same approach in the Overwatch League. They pick up like tier 2 players and they just have unbelievable performances. So even though they haven't had that many players on the roster so far in Valorant, they've executed the same approach in Overwatch as well with great success. So, this is not only limited to Valorant per se.
Exactly. And that, I think, is the beginning of our story, because in order to understand Gunba and Packington, in order to understand Immortals, you must first understand Gunba and Packington. And in order to understand Gunba and Packington, you must first understand the Overwatch League. In order to bake a pie, you must first invent the universe. I think that's a Carl Sagan quote, right?
What?
And, I think he said something like, to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first create the universe.
I'm not going to take a dig at you here, okay? Let's just run with it. It sounds brilliant. I'm in love with it. Yeah, pies and universes. Let's go.
So Gunba and Packington are involved in the coaching staff of the Immortals version of the Overwatch League team. And they're tasked with building a team on a really tight budget for 2020. So they sold a bunch of their top players, most popular players in the league, people that were presumably on really good salaries, but also were the faces of the league for some people as well. And instead, sold all of them and picked up tier 2 players that everyone thought were going to be bad. We as analysts of the scene thought they were going to be trashed here. They come out this year and they place really highly, get into playoffs, do pretty well. It was an enormous accomplishment. And we thought, my God, these guys are really good scouts. Like, these are really good. Halfway through the season, they moved to Valorant. Both Packington actually splits his time between the Overwatch League and Valorant. But Gunba, the coach, the guy that's actually on the ground scouting these guys and doing coaching as well, has gone full-time Valorant. And we thought, this will be really interesting to see the Immortals philosophy the Valiant philosophy of using data analysis and wide open trials to really handpick talent. That's something that the CSGO scene has never seen before, at least from my understanding. The Overwatch League is very big on big open trials and data analysis and multiple coaches all studying people's player POVs to try and find the best tier 2 talent possible. As far as I'm aware, it's much more kind of networky within CSGO. It's like, who do you know? Who have you played with before? Have you been dominating FPL? Have you got an opportunity to join a team? The process for acquiring tier 2 talent isn't as fleshed out. And so to see these guys bring it into Valorant was very interesting because we didn't know really whether it would work. And boom, Immortals immediately start by picking up a 5-player team of people that no one had fucking heard of. This first 5 team, I think you have to start there before we even talk about people like Neptune, JMO, and ShoT Up. You've got to talk about the first 5 people that they had. No one had heard of them either. People had very low expectations for this first team when it was first announced.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just want to set like the precedent as well here when we're talking about a team like this who picks up, new players that no one has really heard of. Generally, you might think of teams like New England Patriots who are like pretty disliked, within the NFL because they pick up all this talent and, they have this incredible success that everyone's tired of. And as well, if you come from Overwatch, you might think of Boston Uprising, picking up these cheap players, do a lot of scouting in the tier 2 scene. The thing with Immortals is they're so damn likable.
Yeah.
Gunby and Packing 10. That you cannot possibly dislike what they're doing within the scene. I don't know if you disagree with it, Josh.
No.
You didn't even make a face, so I'm worried now. But I think that you cannot dislike this organization for their approach here either. They are very open about the fact that, hey, we look at a lot of statistics. We put player and personality aside, really, in favor of statistics and really trying to make the most of our team. And they really enable their players as well to fulfill their potential. I think that is the crucial last step of this team. Yes, we're scouting tier 2. We're picking up new talent. We're probably signing, I don't have any insight, but they're probably signing, pretty low contracts as well, because why would they, right? These are they're giving the opportunity to low players, right?
I would imagine.
But the thing is, they're enabling them to succeed as well. When you think of players, we'll get into it. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm so damn excited about this team. But the crucial thing is, they're not dislikable. This is a team that really enables and fulfills the potential of up-and-coming players, and that is so cool.
Yeah, hell, if I was a tier 2 player in the Valorant scene right now, the number one team I would want to join is not Sentinels. The number one team I would want to join is Immortals, because they have shown that they will use their coaching and use their players properly to be able to fulfill your potential as a player. And then they will actively look to push you to tier 1 teams. So they're not gonna, it's not like you join an 8th best in North America team and you're just stuck there on a contract. No, Immortals are going to actively help you as a player move on to better and better rosters, even while they themselves are putting up placings in, Immortals got really consistent 3rd place finishes in a bunch of different tournaments, and they still helped push some of their players like Asuna and Dicey into even bigger organizations like 100 Thieves afterwards. And that is the kind of active player development process that you are just desperate for as a tier 2 player within any scene in esports, but especially Valorant at the early stage.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Let's look at this first 5-man roster that they picked up. It was there was Cola, who's a French-Canadian guy who was good friends with the French-Canadians on Gen.G, but was just kind of hanging around the scene. They picked up Asuna, who was a big upcoming player, very young, that was coming out of Tier 2 CS, but he was on a very fast trajectory upwards, so that was a big pickup. Picked up Gangster, a Mongolian guy who I think lives in the US somewhere. He might live in Canada, actually, but I think he lives in the US. And
somewhere close.
Yeah, but I wanted to make the distinction that he doesn't live in Mongolia as well, right? Just for ping reasons.
Maybe he does. I don't even know.
I don't think he does, because I've seen his ping and it ain't that bad. Unless he's got some damn good VPN routing. but yeah, they picked up this guy called Gangster, who, as far as I'm aware, wasn't really well known in the scene. JC Stanny as their IGL, as again, not particularly well known, and Bjor as well. All of these guys came from big open trials that they had for their first team, and they actively made changes very early on as well. They ended up dropping Bjor, they subbed out JC Stanny at various times, and they were fiddling with the roster while still getting pretty decent results. They continued to fiddle with the roster until we got to a stage where in Pop Flash, they were running what most people would call their kind of final 5-man. This was the one that most people I associated with Immortals, which was that same core of JC Stanny, who was IGLing, Gangster, who was super consistent on the Sova, Cola had now transitioned over to the Cypher, and then they had Asuna again, and Dicey. Dicey was this pickup that they found from Crunker.io, which is a Flash game, a Flash FPS game, and he was just playing that, and he decided, oh, I'll hop into Valorant. He remains, as far as I'm aware, the only Valorant pro in the scene. And guess who found him? Gunber and Packing 10, because of course they did, because their scouting is incredible.
Yeah, but when you look at these Pop Flash performances as well, the crucial part here is that I think that Immortals could have made it further. But unfortunately, they actually, I think it was Dicey, had internet connection issues as well in this tournament. So they lost relatively early in the group stage as well. They had to get replacement for that match. Bunny replaced him on the Jett. And as you can see, the performances was not great.
No.
You know, not the performance you want to put on in a premier tournament.
And Dicey was their star player as well. So they went from like the best to the worst. Incredible carry potential of this team. One of the best plays in Valorant so far is actually, I believe, was Dicey on Bind versus Sentinels, who crossed out 1 versus 5 as well. Let me see if I can find that.
Incredible play. Like Sentinels, the best team in North America, and Dicey successfully just 1v5s them as Jett in his first tournament. So you're about to see this on your screen as well. We're seeing Sentinels versus Immortals here, and here's Dicey on this Jett.
This is a 10-minute clip. What's going on here? Okay.
Well, there's probably tons of reactions and stuff. So you can see as well. I mean, you are the commentator, Josh.
Yeah, I'm going to wind this back to the beginning because you missed the entire part of it. But Dicey gets his first pick on Shazam just over the top. Sees a tiny little peek over there. He has to retrieve the spike from the middle and dashes past the Phoenix. Knows he's going to follow him.
No scopes.
Pulls out the Jett ultimate, which was pre-nerf here. There's only 10 seconds left on the clock. Dapper gets rezzed here as well. So he's still in a 1v3 with the best players in North America chasing him down. Again, brilliant right click, including a headshot onto Sick. Smoke, fake dash, beautiful. They have no idea where he's repositioned to. Great kill on Dapper, great kill on Zoms. Fantastic 1v5 ace kill. Just, honestly, unbelievable stuff. And this is a guy, again, that Gumber and Peckington found that was a Valorant-only player, had no history in CS. So it's not like they picked him up based on reputation. They don't work on reputation. They work on the results that you can give in the trials and the results that they've seen when you play for other teams around the scene. That's what's so impressive to me.
Yeah. And so when you look at Immortals going into First Strike, they are actually one of those teams. So obviously they've undergone like some new player changes as well going into First Strike. But the Immortals' reputation could have been through the roof, stonks after this Pop Flash performance if Dicey was allowed to play in those initial group stage matches, because that was their star player. You saw yourself what he did against Sentinels there in the highlight as well. If he could play some of those matches, Immortals most likely, it's rude to envy in that group as well, but they probably would have made it through the playoffs, I would say, with Dicey in the mix. Yeah, and totally then agree. Maybe made that run in the bracket as well. They could have gone like third. I don't want to say second, but they could have gone like third, and we would have really considered Immortals like a top team within the region as well going into First Strike. Yeah, but they underwent some player changes as well, and now if you look at the statistics, the Pop Flash performance is going out in groups. So I think on a surface level, it looks as though Immortals is like a borderline kind of tier 2 kind of team, but actually I think they should be rated pretty highly going into First Strike. Yeah, let's go through some of the changes that they've done though, because that 5-man roster that had Asuna and Dicey, they, like we mentioned earlier on, the Immortals actively sought to let these guys continue in their career, to move beyond Immortals and to the essentially what is a super team of 100 Thieves, the team with Nitro, an IGL AWPer that's moved over from CS at just after the peak of his career with Liquid, Hiko, a god of the scene who's just been around forever, and then Steel, the guy who was at the top of the scene, has been such an incredible competitor for so long, and had the match fixing scandal ruined his career. Those three players have joined with Asuna and Dicey from the former Immortals roster, and Immortals actively
actively helped them to develop their career and move forwards for that prospect because they knew that it was right by the players. They also traded Cola, who was their Cypher player, but wanted to play Duelist. They traded him over to NRG as well. And so they're actively helping their players go from no-name acquisitions. Okay, Asuna wasn't a no-name, but Dicey and Cola, I would say those are basically no-name players coming into Valorant, didn't have big reputations, and Immortals have taken them, got the potential out of them, and then allowed them to develop their careers even further by going to teams that potentially have more potential than Immortals themselves, despite good placings in Immortals. And instead, what do? We go back to the scouting factory, and
we go.
Gunber and Packing 10 just sift through the masses to be able to find genius-level pickups once again. And when the news broke, I think this is important context as well, when the news broke that Immortals had sold Asuna, Dicey, and Cola in order to get Gunber a new Bugatti, the Reddit, the Valorant competitive subreddit in particular, I saw a lot of comments, multiple comments, saying, wow, it's so hard to be an Immortals fan because it feels like they don't care about results. They only care about money. I think that the narrative at that point was they're just selling these guys to make a quick buck. They'll never be as good again, and this is it. They've sold the golden goose. They found some incredible talent in Asuna and Dicey, and they've sold it immediately. They've given up what they had. They didn't value it. But instead, what the fans haven't realized is the gold was never the players. The gold was the coaching staff and their scouting abilities. Because what they've gone and done is pick up players that are arguably better than the ones that they've sold on. In terms of Cypher players, Neptune has looked like a better Cypher than Cola was. And when Stanny was on the Cypher before that, better than him. So that's an upgrade at that position, I would say. Neptune's been playing very well in the Renegades tournament that we've seen. He's good for 2 or sometimes 3 whenever you hit his sight. He's great at just holding his ground, holding an angle, and getting kills when you push him, which is obviously great as a Cypher. Good utility usage, very good at being able to play the map control game. Just an all-around good player.
Yeah. No, he's the anchor of this new Immortals team, I would say. Well, I would like to fill in as well. When you cheer for Immortals, I think less so you really have to cheer for the players and more so cheer for the org and actually the team and the coaching staff and the structure, as you mentioned, because otherwise you'll be caught in that scenario where your favorite player might actually leave the team and depart for a new one. And I think actually there's something to be said about the philosophies of some teams as well and the approach to the attitude of that team, because Immortals, they're really establishing this identity of bringing in players, but consequently succeeding with those new players, okay?
Yeah.
Some teams, they like picking up star players, being classy, and they like being the elite tier 1, but that brings a lot more expectations as well, and that obviously affects player mentality. When you look at in esports, in the past, in any esport really, you see some of these star teams being built where they take like the best player from that team, and they put them together. They have massive expectations to perform in that environment, because otherwise, what are you worth? If you cannot perform with star players alongside your in your team, like, are you really worth your money, right? I think crucially for Immortals, they're really making a point here as well that, you know, we can succeed with any player in this team, and that really brings like a team-wide kind of mentality to the team, where like, hey, we got great foundation. You know, I trust in my teammates as well, because like the reputation of this team is that we're able to, like, you know, during the most harsh conditions where we haven't played with each other for more than a few weeks, we're still able to transition into this top team and really fulfill that potential of ours. And I think that's a great attitude overall that the players really inherit from this coaching staff and the attitude of the organization overall. So that's actually a bit of a positive for me, that, hey, you know, we'll let some of our players go. If you want to chase new adventures for like some big top tier organizations, you know, so many big name organizations, you can build a YouTube channel or whatever you want, that's fine, because we'll find like incredible players to replace you and elevate them to your current level, and that is fine. And I think that is really comforting when you're cheering for Immortals, because I don't think you have to be necessarily worried. Obviously now, as we get into the new pickups, you know, you mentioned Neptune, who was a good pickup, that, you know, a bit of a no name, but now he's having a solid anchor performance on this team, as you said, picked up 2 or 3 frags. And then you have incredible star players now brought into this team. I bet you can go on like a 15-minute rant alone talking about ShoT Up Duelist's performances on this team, because they looked so crisp in the Renegades tournament.
They absolutely did. I mean, ShoT Up is a player, from what I know, I'm not a heavy follower of the CS scene, but the legend precedes this guy, is that he was a young dude in the tier 2 CS scene who never really committed to playing CS. He was always busy with school. He was just playing kind of almost casually in an amateur sense. Just seeing how far he could go while not fully committing to it as a career. And he was slapping people around at the tier 2 CS level. And so the theory goes, if he's able to fully commit in Valorant, my God, he should be good, right? Because if you're taking it casually and you're not even really, okay, you're trying hard, but you're not committing all of your time to really focusing and improving and gelling with a team and getting better. You've still got school and stuff on the side. If you can commit 100% of your time, your focus, your motivation, your attention to getting good in Valorant, you should be an absolute freak. That's the theory. That's the legend. And my God, did it actually deliver in reality. It was insane watching this dude. People are already excited about him if they've ever seen him watch CS, if they've ever watched him play CS. And I'm already excited about him, having watched him play in one tournament in Valorant. And I feel like everybody else is as well. The first thing to do before I even try and find any what do you call them, VODs, clips, highlights of this guy, is just to take a look at the stats. Just take a look at the stats of the tournament that he played in. This is the only tournament that he's played with Immortals so far, and he absolutely beasted it. It was absurd. These are ShoT Up's average stats throughout the main event of the tournament. So group stage and then playoffs, where he was playing against some tier 2 teams, but he was also playing against Cloud9 and Andbox, who won because they made it to the grand finals. So this isn't some shitty run through a tournament where you just beast a group qualifier stage or go out but with a spectacular performance in the groups. No, they made it deep. They played against a lot of the good teams that were in this tournament. And ShoT Up is averaging 182 average damage per round. That's unbelievable. The color purple there means this should not exist. That's what this light purple means. It's freaky kind of plays.
Yeah, and so what I actually appreciate with this stat as well is that I looked up ShoT Up stats before the tournament because, you know, he's played in the tier 2 scene for a bit now. He was on a team called Morning Light alongside Neptune, actually. And that was a team that was up and coming. They played in some qualifiers. They didn't really get promoted yet to the tier 2 or tier 1 scene, but they had some good performances in qualifiers leading up to it. And ShoT Up stats at the time was around like 150 ADR, okay?
Right.
So now he joins Immortals, and he's arguably playing against some of the best teams he's played so far. And he goes from 150 to 182 against higher quality opponents.
Yeah.
That's just utterly insane. So this is now, ShoT Up is like, if he has good performances in his first strike, he could establish it himself as one of the premier duelists within the entire region. Because this performance in the Renegades tournament by itself should just be valued so ridiculously highly because, as you saw the statistics, I mean, they were incredible. And then as well, you saw that like the way he entry frags on this team as well.
Yeah,
like it's inhuman when he plays this Phoenix and Reyna. It's fearless in a way, but he manages to secure the frags. Like sometimes, you know, it's fearless and you're confident that your team will trade for you. But the thing is, like, ShoT Up just runs in and he gets the frags. And the team is like, well, I mean, I guess we'll follow because like they're supposed to trade him out, but he doesn't die. And so what's the trade? He just keeps rampaging on. And like, I don't want to say that he's just, you know, mechanically reliant on his skill by itself, but it's just that it's so ridiculously good compared to some of these top teams here as well, that alone is just enough to really just fuel him to these statistical outliers that is just incredible.
Yeah, the context as well. This tournament, he was playing against TenZ, Android on Andbox, and he outperformed those players. I mean, he didn't actually outperform Android in the finals, but over the course of the whole tournament, he outperformed Android in the teams that he was playing against and came up with unbelievable moments. I think I've got the right round here where he hits a crazy 3K with this Sheriff. I think I've got the right round. This may be the wrong one. I might have to dig for it a little deeper, but I think this is one of the just dumbest plays I've ever seen. And I don't mean... Vigilant. Yeah, it's just incredible. He immediately looks like if he keeps this level up, he will be at least a top 5 player in North America, probably a top 3 player, and will have, oh my God, unbelievable. And then he just hits that as well. It's absurd. And he was coming up with moments, that might be the most impressive, but he was coming up with moments similar to that, but with rifles on many rounds for Immortals. It was, the level of consistency was absurd. But like I was saying, he might have an argument if he continues this and he can still pull it off against teams like TSM, Envy, Dignitas, Sentinels, the other teams that are up at the top level in North America. If he can keep up this level of performance, he will be in the conversation for best player in North America. He might not immediately get it, but he will be added to that conversation with the likes of Tens, Sinatra, Wardell. He'll be up there with these kind of players.
Yeah. If you're a fan of Immortals, ShoT Up has immediately emerged as the star player of this team and the guy that you'll just be excited to watch every single round. Now, there is perhaps something to be said about his consistency, because as you said, he was putting out incredible highlights through the entire tournament, the way he plays as well. It's very exciting to watch ShoT Up play. So he's a good player to root for, because you never know what you get from him. Positively, that is, you never know what highlight he's just going to pop around the corner and get a 3K or whatever. But some maps he could disappear against some opponents. You would probably, study the footage a bit more and know why that was. But it felt like sometimes he could just fall flat. I remember there being a split map, I think.
Absolutely.
Towards the end of the tournament, where he just really vanished. And I don't want to say that Immortals rely on him either, because they have solid individuals across the board. We haven't even spoken about Gangsta yet.
Yeah.
But ShoT Up has this tendency sometimes, very occasionally, to just disappear from a map as well. And that is something he'll have to improve on his game moving into First Strike if you want to be a top tier.
I actually looked at a lot of the VODs, like you said, Jonathan, and I think the reason for that is that he plays a lot of solo positions on the map. For example, when he plays on split defense, he plays alone in mailroom, and he likes to take aggressive peeks into mid because he knows that he's that talented that he can make kills happen there. But he doesn't really have anybody backing him up in the same way. So I think Immortals will develop their strategy around their base positions where people hold to help him a little bit more, so that if the opposing team tries to counter him by pushing multiple players into a position where they know he's holding alone, he doesn't have to deliver the 2Ks, right? He can just be good for one and let his teammate get the rest. And that applies also to Bind when he plays in Hookah. He plays on his own there. And it's, again, he just gets 5 kills in this round, just at the beginning of the game. What an insane performance from ShoT Up. But yeah, I think part of the reason for that is his positioning in these strategies from Immortals. And I think that with more time, in the week before First Strike, they'll actually have ironed out some of those issues, and ShoT Up won't be playing such a solo playstyle, and he'll actually play a little more with the team. Because it wasn't like he was getting punished a lot, but there were definitely openings for you to punish this guy.
Yeah. Now, I think we should transition into the other duelist on this Immortals team, because usually we talk about duelists as a pair, and the other duelist on this team is going to be JMO, who usually plays the Jett for this team, sometimes flexes over to the Phoenix as well. Statistically, not as impressive as ShoT Up here. JMO is also a new pickup to this team. I believe he played for a team called Noble, if I'm not incorrect on that one as well. But he's been added to this lineup, and he plays the Jett. Statistically speaking, compared to ShoT Up's 180 ADR, JMO averages about 124. He still has 1.12 KD, 210 ACS. You don't put a lot of stock into average combat score, but still, just putting it out there. JMO seems like he could be one of the pieces of this team that really develops his game going into First Strike and positively surprises us. Because I think if JMO really develops the way he plays this game as well, where he plays maybe a bit more aggressive on this Jett and opens up the site for this team, I think that could be really crucial for not only Immortals as a team, but also his synergy with ShoT Up on that Phoenix and the Reyna as well, where JMO can play this Jett a bit more aggressively and open up space for the rest of his team to really succeed. And I think that perhaps he has the mechanical skill to really fulfill that role. And I think that could be a big difference maker for this Immortals team going into First Strike.
Yeah, JMO was putting up decent performances. It wasn't amazing like ShoT Up was, but it was pretty decent. And he looked at his best, like you said, when he was playing the Jett and also when he was opping. The Jett opper really seems to be his niche. He did try and play the Phoenix on Bind for Immortals, and it wasn't that great. I don't think it was worth continuing with in the future. I would like to see him remain on the Jett. You can see there's just an obvious statistical difference here between the two agents, and that played out in the game as well. He just wasn't really getting the picks, didn't look as comfortable with the agent. Obviously, you don't really want your Phoenix opping either, which is JMO's speciality, so I don't really understand that pick. I hope it's something that Immortals move away from, but I do agree with you that JMO's got room to improve, and if he does, then ShoT Up and JMO is going to be a really deadly DPS duo moving forwards for Immortals in First Strike. If he kind of grows into his position on Immortals, which he totally could as a brand new player to the team, then that's going to be a nasty situation for him.
Yeah. So moving on, perhaps you talk about Gangsta now, because Gangsta, one of Bren's favorite players. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it is, because Gangsta has occasionally carried him in ranked a long time ago.
Oh well, there you go. There you go, absolutely. I mean, statistically, Gangsta as well. One of the players who has recently improved more for this team, I'd like to say. Yeah. He's been on the Immortals team for quite a while now, and he generally plays the Sova, but he has also flexed over to some other heroes at times. Taking a look at his stats, 132 ADR actually, hovers around 1.11 KD and 0.7 KPR. So this is a player as well that you get consistent performances out.
Very.
But as of recent, he has really stepped up his game, I'd like to believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is the core of Gangsta is the consistency and stability he provides to Immortals. He's always in the right place on the round, always getting big value out of his utility, which has become freakishly good in recent times, actually. He's probably the second best Sova in North America in terms of his utility usage.
High praise, yeah.
The shock darts, the drone timings, and the ult usage is second only to Sinatra, I would say. He's probably not the second best Sova in North America, but in terms of his utility usage, I would say he is. And in a position where Gangsta is your third best fragger on the team, which he really should be behind, he previously behind Dicey and Asuna, and now behind ShoT Up and JMO. Gangsta is a really good third fragger to have on a team. That is a very powerful third place player. A lot of other teams, they drop off after the first two in North America, and the bottom three are just kind of like pretty decent. Gangsta's still a pretty powerful third fragger to have on a team, and he's not like wildly inconsistent. He doesn't have some rounds where he delivers you multiple kills and some rounds where he gets nothing. He varies from some rounds he'll get you the kills he's supposed to get, and then some rounds he'll go even further. The inconsistency only extends positively. It doesn't extend negatively. And he's also really good in the clutch. I'm going to try and find you a clip from yesterday when we were watching where Immortals brought it back against Cloud9 on Split. And Gangsta was incredible in that game. And the final couple of rounds, he was just so instrumental. I think they needed to win 4 rounds in a row in order to get it to overtime. And Immortals just relied on Gangsta to get them there the whole time. And he was good for it the whole time through.
Yeah, and I think this was perhaps the map we will see the scoreboard at some point where maybe ShoT Up disappeared. I'm not quite sure about that.
I think it was, yeah. I think actually this one was the one where ShoT Up got neutralized a little by 10s. And so instead they had to rely on Gangsta really coming up clutch.
Yeah, instead we're watching 10 highlights here on the Immortals video.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
There's never anything wrong with 10 highlights.
Yeah, actually, I must be thinking of a different game because this one just ended 13-10, so this is...
Well, what actually popped into my head was actually his Haven highlights when he was playing the Sova, because it did have some really good lineups at times, especially as you mentioned, the ability usage, the shock darts. That is really what stood out for me. As you said, second best ability usage in North America on Sova. I think that's actually quite fair when you look at some of these shock dart placements, but also Gangsta is going to be the player as well that sometimes picks up the Ares or the Odin as well. So if that's your kind of thing, just like using the arrow from Sova as well to see through the walls, and then utilizing the heavy wall penetration from the Odin. Gangsta is going to be your man in that regard. So reviewing all of these players for Immortals, you will notice that there is a ton of consistency across the board. As you mentioned earlier, generally after your top 2 players, it drops off, and you have those like bottom 3 players that utilizes their abilities quite well, but they're not really able to put out these standout performances on the scoreboard when it matters most deep into the tournaments. But here you have a really consistent roster with ShoT Up and Jmu, who can be a fantastic dual pairing. You have Neptune, who's a great anchor for this team, and Gangsta, who's an incredible Sova on this team as well. So Immortals, a really exciting team going into First Strike.
Absolutely. Really exciting. The game that I was thinking of was actually Immortals versus Ambox. It was the grand finals rather than the semi, where Immortals lost to Cloud9 on split 13-10, but they actually managed to drag this one into OT as well, where they had to win the last they had to win the last 5 rounds in a row on attack split in order to get this to OT. So a huge deal there for Immortals to be able to do. And in the final round, as you'll see here, as we play out the final round, Gangster just had to come up absolutely enormous for them. I think Immortals are such a cool team to root for. But like you said earlier, Jonathan, it's about rooting for the organization, because players will come and go for these guys. This roster is really exciting for First Strike, but the players will come and go over time. But what you're really rooting for here is just the success of the org and the system that they have, where they're going to show you cool new talents. They're not going to just keep the same players over and over again. They're going to show you guys you've never seen before. They're going to show you brand new players from the tier 2 system. They're going to mix up their roster when these opportunities present themselves. But they're still going to get deep placings in tournaments. I mean, third place were like the last finishes, and then unfortunately Dicey disconnecting in Pop Flash. But apart from that, third place, and then a grand finals performance here in a slightly lesser tournament where they face off against Sandbox. But these are really impressive results.
Yeah. We didn't really talk about JC Stani as well, but I think he's just across the board, your consistent shot caller of a team here. Nothing too stand out about him, but he's pretty reliable. He's not like, like some other players in the scene. Like, he's not like this shot caller that just like feeds and just like don't know how to actually play the game, but he's really smart. That's not JC Stani at all. He has some consistent performances as well, despite being a shot caller for this team. So there's not a ton of like dislikable parts of this Immortals team. So we've already covered a few of the reasons why you should cheer for the Immortals. But another one is really to just consider, if you like rooting for an underdog kind of team, Immortals might forever just be considered the immortal underdog, because they just will never be properly rated like a top team, I think, because they undergo these player changes and they gotta figure out their roles, etc. But they're forever going to be this challenger, taking on the top teams like TSM, like Sentinels within this region, always trying to establish themselves with a new roster. And that is so much fun to actually follow and to root for when you go up against some of these legendary organizations like Cloud9, an esports franchise that have been known forever, right? And then you have other teams like splurging on rosters. We're not going to name those, but Immortals is this really fun and revitalizing team. Is that a word? Revitalizing? Revitalizing team. Yeah. Revitalizing team that is really fun to root for. So, Immortals, a bit of a fan favorite for us as well. Always a great organization to root for.
Absolutely. America loves an underdog, and Immortals are definitely that. They're not going to pay to win. They're here using their eyeballs to scout the best talent that you've never heard of in order to take home those deep placings in tournaments. Expectations for First Strike are tempered somewhat. If this was their previous roster, you absolutely would have expected them to be able to just slot straight into the top 8. Now I feel like, honestly, with this roster, they should still get top 8. I would still consider them a top 8 team within North America, but if they ended in like the top 12 or even the top 16, I wouldn't say that was disastrous for them, because they are a very young 5-man roster.
This is where you cut the video. This is where you cut the video, because I move away from my, very statistical, analytical kind of chair placement here. And, I'm preaching the stats we're seeing here and, very analytical place on the minimap, all that stuff. Like, no, like, honestly, I've essentially just lost all my doubt in the Immortals organization. Like, there's so much fun to really follow and to watch. They keep making the right choices, great acquisition, so fun and exciting to watch. And I think that they should be rated a top team, because even though they got new acquisitions on this team, ShoT Up, establishing himself as a top tier duelist here as well. I have faith in Immortals. I'm not doubting them as a team at all moving forward. And we talk about some teams, they really have to improve going into the tournament. They have some things to prove and figure out. Immortals, yeah, you have some things to really prove and figure out. But I have full confidence in this team. Because they just keep consistently making great decisions and really just surpass expectations. So really exciting team moving forward into First Strike.
Yeah, incredibly exciting. Let us know if you're a fan of Immortals in the comments and where you think they'll place in the tournament, because I think it's a little up in the air still, despite the fact they made it to the grand finals of this Renegades NSG tournament. Like and subscribe to the video. You'll be able to see more First Strike preview videos coming out from the Plat Valorant channel, and we'll see you next time.